Hello and welcome. I'm Pierre Fitter. We begin with a historical judgment by the Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court. It has quashed Section 6A of the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act. This is the enabling act for the CBI. And according to Section 6A, the agency had to first take permission before prosecuting any government officer above the rank of Joint Secretary. Now, of course, according to the court's verdict, the CBI or police can directly lodge an FIR or investigate any senior government official without having to seek permission from the Department of Personnel and Training. Arthur Khan joins us on the phone line. Arthur, a major decision that enhances the independence of the CBI to investigate government officers.
Well, indeed, it's a landmark decision, and in fact, it will go a long way in bringing transparency in the investigations as far as senior government officials are concerned. It had been a big bottleneck for CBI for a long time, and it had been wanting that these changes be made. Now we know that the Supreme Court has said that all officials, even senior to the rank of joint secretaries, can be probed. Initially, the CBI had to take permission according to single directive as per CVC guidelines that any senior official, the permission needs to be taken from the concerned ministry before carrying out searches or registering cases or at the time of the charge sheet. So now that has been struck down, and now CBI has full powers to initiate proceedings against senior corrupt officials.
Arthur, many thanks for that. We also have a bite from Prashant Bhushan, a noted Supreme Court lawyer, also a member of the Aam Aadmi Party, who's been taking on this case. Let's listen to what he said.
उन्होंने ये बोला है कि इससे भ्रष्टाचार के तहकीकात में बाधा आ रही है, इसका कोई जस्टिफिकेशन नहीं है। ये आर्टिकल 14 सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जो कहता है कि हर नागरिक इस देश में सामान्य है, उसके खिलाफ है कि आपने सीनियर ऑफिसर्स को तो ये प्रोटेक्शन दे दिया जिसके तहत सरकार जो है, जो कि इसमें इस भ्रष्टाचार में आमतौर पर सम्मिलित रहती है, वो परमिशन ही नहीं देती और इन्वेस्टिगेशन हो ही नहीं पाता। तो ये बहुत ऐतिहासिक फैसला है जो आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने दिया, जिसके चलते हुए अब सीबीआई को कोई भी इन्वेस्टिगेशन किसी के खिलाफ करने में कोई सरकार की परमिशन नहीं लेनी पड़ेगी। The Supreme Court's Constitution Bench has today, in a historic judgment, struck down the single directive which had been introduced in 2003 in the CBI Act and the CBC Act, by which the CBI was required to take the permission of the government for even investigating officers of the level of Joint Secretary and above. This absolutely dishonest provision had been introduced by the government after the Hawala judgment, when the Supreme Court had held that this same single directive, which had by then been introduced by way of an administrative order, that this was unconstitutional. Despite that, the same provision was brought in the CVC Act and the CBI Act in 2003, which has today been declared to be unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has held that this is interfering and obstructing corruption investigations against senior officers, and the Supreme Court has also held that this is totally discriminatory, because under the Constitution, under Article 14, all people are considered equal, and just because officer happens to be a senior officer above the level of Joint Secretary, he cannot be granted this kind of protection or immunity from corruption investigation.
All right, I want to go back to Arthur Khan for more on this story. Arthur, as Prashant Bhushan was saying over there, this particular clause was brought in after the Hawala investigation, and he believes it's a completely unconstitutional clause. Of course, this has been struck down by the Constitution Bench. He believes it was unconstitutional because it creates a sort of imbalance, a sort of inequality between senior government officials above the rank of Joint Secretary and any other citizen in the country for whom permission is not needed to launch an investigation.
Well, that's right. The court has recognized that this is unconstitutional. Also, more importantly, that CBI, it was a major impediment for the investigative agencies, especially the CBI. The reason being, just to give you a sense of how important this verdict is. That in any case, if a higher official is found to be indulged in corrupt practices, the CBI could not carry out any searches or even probe against that official until it informs the government's senior-most officials, meaning that the secrecy of the entire operation was compromised, and therefore there were instances in which the officials were alerted and the investigations could not be carried out in the way it had to be. So this is a major, it's a landmark judgment as far as bringing bringing about fair investigations in scams and in cases where higher bureaucracies indulging in corruption.
Arthur, the counter to this, of course, is something the government has long been claiming, which is that if you start prosecuting every major government official for every perceived offence, it could hamper the working of the bureaucracy. It's the same argument, if you remember, that they made for the RTI Act, that if you start asking for information for every single government department, the government officials will have nothing else to do.
Well, indeed, that's the flip side of this entire issue. But the reason being that there was a long time need was being felt by the CBI, and not the CBI, even other investigative agencies. It will go a long way in bringing about deterrence as far as cases where we find senior officials indulging in corrupt practices.
Absolutely.
As far as policy paralysis is concerned, it's entirely the government's initiative which it will have to control.
Arthur Khan, many thanks for those perspectives from the court.